Most men wake up every morning believing they're beginning a new day, but they're actually repeating the same mental prison they built yesterday. They open their eyes already defeated, scrolling through their phones before their feet touch the ground, consuming other people's priorities before they've even acknowledged their own existence. They dress in a hurry, eat without presence, and rush into a world that will demand everything from them while they've given nothing to themselves. This is not living, this is systematic self-abandonment, dressed up as productivity. And the cruelest part is that most people don't even realize they're doing it. They think this is what mornings are supposed to look like. They think exhaustion is normal. They think starting the day in reactive mode is just part of being an adult. They accept this chaos as inevitable, as the price of modern life, as something everyone deals with. But I've spent decades studying human behavior, working with thousands of people across every walk of life, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that how you begin your morning determines not just your day, but the entire trajectory of your life. Your morning is not just a routine, it's a declaration of identity. It's a vote for the kind of person you're choosing to become. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years I watched successful people, studied their patterns, analyzed their mindsets, interviewed them, lived alongside them. And I kept finding the same truth repeated across every truly fulfilled person I encountered. They didn't just stumble into greatness. They didn't get lucky. They built their lives deliberately, consciously, quietly, in the morning hours, before the world could interfere. They understood something most people never grasp, something so fundamental that once you see it, you can't unsee it. That the first hour of your day is sacred territory. It's the only time you have complete sovereignty over your attention, your energy, and your direction. It's the only moment when you belong entirely to yourself, before the demands, the expectations, the obligations, the distractions can claim you. Lose that hour and you lose yourself. Protect that hour and you reclaim your entire existence. It's that simple and that profound. The modern world has turned morning routines into a battleground. Society wants you distracted, fragmented and reactive from the moment you wake up. Your phone wants your attention before you've even remembered who you are. Your email wants your anxiety before you've had a chance to feel centered. Social media wants your comparison before you've had an opportunity to feel enough. The news wants your fear before you've connected with your own strength. Everyone and everything is reaching for you before you've even reached for yourself. And this creates a catastrophic problem that most people never identify as the source of their suffering. Because when you begin your day by responding to external demands, you train your mind to believe that your life belongs to everyone else. You become a servant to circumstance rather than a master of your own reality. You become reactive instead of creative. You become a responder instead of an initiator. And over time, this pattern doesn't just affect your mornings. It rewires your entire sense of agency. I remember sitting with a man once who told me he felt like his life was slipping away. He was 47 years old, had a decent career, a family, a house in the suburbs, all the markers of what's supposed to be success. But every morning he woke up with this hollow feeling in his chest, this sense that he was living someone else's script, following directions written by people he'd never met, for a destination he'd never chosen. He couldn't point to any single catastrophic failure. His life just felt like it was happening to him instead of being created by him, like he was watching himself from the outside, going through motions, checking boxes, accumulating accomplishments that meant nothing to his soul. And when I asked him about his mornings, everything became clear. He had no ritual, no anchor, no intentional beginning. He woke up to an alarm he resented, checked his phone immediately, got dressed, while mentally rehearsing all the things that might go wrong that day, skipped breakfast or ate while distracted, and arrived at work already depleted. His mornings were training him to be a victim, and his life was reflecting that training perfectly. Every single day he was practicing helplessness, reactivity and self-neglect, and then wondering why he felt helpless, reactive, and neglected. This is the reality for millions of people. They're not failing because they lack talent or opportunity. They're not struggling because they're lazy or incompetent. They're failing because they've surrendered the most important hour of their existence to chaos and reaction. And here's what makes this so insidious, so dangerous, so devastating. The effects aren't immediate. You don't collapse after one chaotic morning. You don't lose everything after a week of reactive starts. But over weeks, months, years, the accumulation becomes devastating. Your mind learns that life is something that happens to you. Your emotions learn that peace is impossible. Your spirit learns that you don't matter enough to deserve a sacred beginning. Your sense of self erodes so gradually that you don't even notice it's happening. And slowly, imperceptibly, you become a stranger to your own potential. You forget what you're capable of. You forget who you wanted to be. You forget that you ever had dreams that felt urgent and alive. But there's another way, a way that doesn't require you to become someone you're not, or to adopt some rigid, unrealistic system that only works for people with unlimited time and resources. A way that honors the reality of your life, while also honoring the truth of what you're capable of. What I'm going to share with you are 7 habits that have transformed countless lives, including my own. These aren't trendy tactics or complicated rituals, invented by productivity gurus trying to sell you something. They're fundamental practices rooted in human psychology, emotional intelligence, and the simple wisdom that comes from observing what actually works in the real world. These 7 habits, when applied consistently for 30 days, don't just change your mornings. They restructure your entire relationship with yourself, with time, and with possibility. They rewire your brain's default patterns. They rebuild your sense of agency. They reconnect you with the person you've always known you could be. The first habit is waking up without negotiation. This sounds absurdly simple, almost insultingly obvious, but it's where most people lose the war before the battle even begins. The way you wake up reveals everything about your relationship with discipline, with commitment, with self-respect. When your alarm sounds and you hit snooze, you're not just delaying your morning. You're not just getting a few more minutes of rest. You're practicing self-betrayal. You're literally training your brain to ignore commitments you make to yourself. And your brain is learning this lesson perfectly. It's learning that your word means nothing, that discomfort should be avoided at all costs, that immediate gratification is more important than long-term integrity, that you can't be trusted to follow through. Every time you negotiate with the alarm, you're negotiating with your own authority, and you're losing. You're teaching yourself that you're not worth keeping promises to. I've met people who've tried to change their entire lives while still hitting snooze every morning. They want to build businesses, transform their health, improve their relationships, create meaningful work. And they wonder why nothing sticks. They wonder why they can't maintain motivation, why they keep quitting on themselves, why discipline feels impossible, why they always find themselves back at square one. The reason is simple and unforgiving. They haven't mastered the first test of the day. They haven't proven to themselves that they can do something uncomfortable the moment discomfort appears. They haven't built the foundational muscle of self-trust that everything else depends on. Waking up without negotiation isn't about the alarm. It's about building evidence that you can trust yourself. It's about creating a foundation of self-respect that everything else in your life will be built upon. It's about proving that you're the kind of person who does what they say they're going to do, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, even when it would be so much easier to just stay comfortable. Here's what this looks like in practice. You decide on a wake-up time that gives you space before the world demands your attention, not some heroic time that requires you to sleep 4 hours and suffer through your day, not some aspirational time that only works if everything in your life is perfect. A realistic time that you can maintain consistently, even on difficult days. You set one alarm. Not 3, not 5, not 15 with snooze intervals designed to ease you into consciousness. One alarm. And when it sounds, you move. You don't think about it. You don't debate the merits. You don't calculate how tired you feel, or how much sleep you got, or whether you really need to get up right now. You move. Your feet hit the floor within 3 seconds. You stand up. You turn on a light. You engage your body before your mind can sabotage you with its endless negotiations and justifications. This is not about being a morning person. This is about being a person who keeps promises to themselves. And that identity shift changes everything, because when you know you can trust yourself in this one small thing, you start believing you can trust yourself in bigger things. And that belief becomes the foundation for all transformation. The second habit is beginning with silence instead of stimulation. The modern addiction to immediate stimulation is destroying people's ability to think clearly, to feel deeply, to connect authentically with themselves. Most people wake up and immediately inject noise into their consciousness. Phone, news, messages, music, television, podcasts, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. And this creates a devastating pattern that compounds over time. Your mind never gets the space to organize itself. You're consuming other people's ideas, problems, and agendas before you've even connected with your own. You're filling your psychological space with clutter before you've had a chance to establish clarity. You're allowing external voices to set the tone before your internal voice has had a chance to speak. And then you wonder why you feel scattered, anxious, directionless, overwhelmed all day. You wonder why you can't focus, why your priorities feel confused, why you're constantly reacting instead of responding. The answer is simple. You never gave yourself a chance to find your center. Silence is not empty. Silence is not nothing. Silence is where your real thoughts live. It's where intuition speaks, where priorities become clear, where you can actually hear what matters to you beneath all the noise of what everyone else says should matter. When you begin your day with silence, you're not doing nothing. You're doing the most important thing. You're giving yourself permission to exist as yourself before the world tries to tell you who you should be. You're creating space for your authentic voice before it gets drowned out by the chorus of external demands. You're allowing your nervous system to settle, your mind to orient, your spirit to remember what it cares about. This doesn't require meditation expertise or spiritual practice or years of training. It simply requires you to sit with yourself in quiet for even just 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no distractions, no agenda. Just you and your thoughts. Just you and the truth of what's actually going on inside you. Just you and the person you are before you put on all the masks the world requires. What happens in this silence is remarkable. At first, your mind will rebel violently. It will want stimulation, distraction, anything to avoid the discomfort of presence. It will tell you this is boring, that you're wasting time, that you should be doing something productive. Your body will feel restless. Your thoughts will race. You'll want to check your phone, turn on music, do anything to escape the intensity of just being with yourself. But if you stay with it, if you resist the urge to run, something shifts. Your breathing naturally slows. Your nervous system begins to regulate. The anxiety that felt so urgent starts to reveal itself as just noise, just static, just the accumulated tension of living in a world that never stops demanding your attention. And underneath that noise, you find something steady, something calm, something that's been there all along, waiting patiently for you to notice it. This is your center, your home base, the part of you that doesn't need constant stimulation to know it's alive, the part of you that's wise, that knows what matters, that can see clearly when everything else is confused. And when you start your day from this place, everything changes. Your decisions become clearer because you're connected to what you actually value instead of just reacting to urgency. Your reactions become measured because you're operating from calm instead of chaos. Your presence becomes powerful because you're anchored in yourself instead of scattered across 1,000 distractions. Your relationships improve because you can actually listen instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. Your work becomes more focused because you can distinguish between what's important and what's just noise. I've seen people completely transform their emotional stability, their mental clarity, their sense of purpose simply by adding 5 minutes of silence to their mornings. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of self. And most people have been running from themselves for so long, avoiding their own company, drowning out their own voice. They've forgotten what it feels like to just be. This habit reminds you. This habit brings you home. This habit reconnects you with the person you are when no one else is watching, when no one else is demanding anything, when you're just you, unfiltered and real. The third habit is intentional hydration before stimulation. Your body has been in a state of repair and dehydration for 6 to 8 hours while you slept. And the first thing most people do when they wake up is assault it with caffeine, sugar, processed food, or the stress of immediately checking email and diving into problems. They treat their bodies like machines that should function perfectly regardless of maintenance. They expect peak performance while providing minimal care, and then they're shocked, genuinely confused, when they feel depleted, foggy, irritable, anxious. Here's a fundamental truth that most people ignore because it's not sexy or complicated enough. Your brain is 75% water. Your cognitive function, your mood stability, your energy levels, your ability to think clearly and feel balanced, all of it depends on proper hydration. When you wake up dehydrated and immediately stimulate your system with caffeine, you're creating artificial energy that masks your body's actual needs. You're teaching yourself to override biological wisdom with chemical manipulation. You're creating a dependence on external substances instead of learning to support your body's natural rhythms. Drink water first. Real, clean water. At least 16 ounces, ideally more. Before coffee, before breakfast, before checking your phone, before anything else. This isn't some wellness trend invented by influencers trying to sell you something. This is basic human physiology. Your body needs water to activate properly. Your brain needs water to function clearly. Your cells need water to communicate effectively. Your organs need water to perform their essential functions. When you hydrate first, you're not just taking care of your body. You're honoring the biological reality of being human. You're acknowledging that you're not a machine that runs on willpower and stimulation. You're a living organism that requires proper care to perform optimally. You're showing respect for the vehicle that carries you through life. What most people don't realize is that the mid-morning crash they blame on lack of coffee or insufficient sleep is often just chronic dehydration, compounded by caffeine dependency. They're stuck in a cycle of artificial highs and desperate lows, never allowing their body to function from its natural rhythm. They wake up depleted, inject caffeine to create false energy, crash a few hours later, inject more caffeine, crash again. Repeat the cycle day after day, year after year, wondering why they always feel exhausted. Hydration breaks this cycle. It gives your body what it actually needs instead of what your addiction tells you it wants. And the clarity that comes from this is profound. Suddenly you're not fighting through brain fog at 10 in the morning. You're not anxiously chasing the next hit of caffeine just to feel normal. You're not experiencing those crashes that make you want to crawl back into bed. You're just clear, steady, present, energized from your body's own natural capacity instead of from external chemicals. This is what your baseline is supposed to feel like. This is what's possible when you support your biology instead of fighting against it. The fourth habit is movement before momentum. Your body is designed to move. It's built for activity, for strength, for physical expression. But modern life has turned us into sedentary beings who sit in cars, sit at desks, sit on couches, sit in meetings, sit while eating, sit while relaxing, and then wonder why we feel stagnant, lifeless, disconnected from our own vitality. When you wake up and immediately sit down to check your phone or start working or scroll through social media, you're telling your body that it's not important. You're signaling that physical vitality doesn't matter as much as productivity or distraction or other people's opinions. And your body listens. It adapts to this message by becoming more sedentary, more stiff, more disconnected from its own power. It learns that movement is optional, that strength doesn't matter, that you don't care about its capacity. Movement in the morning is not about exercise routines or fitness goals or trying to achieve some aesthetic standard. It's not about burning calories or building muscle or preparing for some competition. It's about awakening your physical intelligence. It's about reminding your body that it's alive, capable, worthy of attention and care. This can be as simple as stretching for 5 minutes, doing 20 push-ups, going for a 10-minute walk, practicing basic mobility movements, doing yoga, dancing, anything that gets your body engaged and active. The specific activity doesn't matter nearly as much as the intention behind it. You're not trying to earn your worth through physical achievement. You're not trying to compensate for yesterday's choices or prepare for tomorrow's challenges. You're simply honoring your body as the vehicle through which you experience life. And that honoring changes your entire relationship with yourself, with your health, with your sense of capability. I've watched people break through years of depression and anxiety simply by adding morning movement to their routine. Because movement shifts your biochemistry in ways that no medication can fully replicate. It releases tension you didn't even know you were holding in your muscles, your joints, your fascia. It activates neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins that regulate mood and focus. It proves to you, physically and undeniably, that you have agency over your state. You're not just a passenger in your own life, helplessly subject to whatever emotions show up. You can shift your state, you can change your energy, you can activate your body's natural capacity for vitality and strength. This knowledge is power, real, tangible, usable power, and it starts with simply choosing to move before the day moves. You before obligations pull you in every direction, before you have a chance to make excuses about being too tired or too busy or not having the right equipment. The fifth habit is consuming substance before consuming information. Before you read the news, scroll social media, check your email, or dive into the noise of the world, put something valuable into your mind. Read something meaningful, something that elevates your thinking, challenges your assumptions, expands your perspective, or connects you to wisdom larger than your immediate circumstances. This could be philosophy, psychology, literature, biography, poetry, spiritual texts, anything that feeds your intellectual and emotional growth instead of just filling time or triggering reactivity. The key is that you're choosing what enters your consciousness rather than letting algorithms and advertisers and news outlets choose for you. You're being intentional about what you consume instead of just opening your mind to whatever happens to be trending or viral or designed to capture your attention through outrage or fear. Your mind in the morning is uniquely receptive. It's fresh, open, not yet cluttered with the day's demands and disappointments. What you consume in this state has disproportionate impact on your thinking for the rest of the day. If you consume outrage, fear, comparison, and triviality first thing in the morning, that becomes the lens through which you'll interpret everything else that happens. If you consume wisdom, beauty, truth, and perspective, that becomes your lens. You're not at the mercy of this, you're in control of it. But only if you're intentional about what you allow in during those crucial early moments when your mind is most impressionable. I make it a practice to read something substantive every morning before I engage with any reactive information. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 30, but it's non-negotiable. I treat it as essential as brushing my teeth or getting dressed, and what this does is create a psychological anchor. No matter what chaos the day brings, I've already connected with something meaningful. I've already reminded myself that there's more to existence than deadlines and drama and other people's emergencies. I've already fed the part of me that thinks deeply, questions honestly, and grows continuously. This isn't escapism. This is foundation building. This is ensuring that the person who enters the day is grounded in something deeper than momentary circumstances or surface-level concerns. This is choosing to shape your consciousness instead of letting it be shaped by whatever happens to grab your attention. The sixth habit is defining your intention before accepting your obligations. Most people start their day by immediately diving into their to-do list, their email inbox, their calendar full of other people's priorities and demands. They become reactive from the first moment, allowing external demands to dictate their focus and energy. They check what everyone else needs from them before they've even asked themselves what they need from themselves. And by the time they realize they haven't done anything meaningful for their own goals, their own growth, their own soul, the day is over and they're exhausted. This is how people lose years of their lives, not to grand failures or dramatic disasters, but to constant reactivity disguised as responsibility. They're busy all the time but never fulfilled. They're productive by external standards, but empty by internal ones. Before you engage with any obligation, take 3 minutes to write down your intention for the day, not your entire to-do list, not every task you need to accomplish, your intention. What actually matters? What would make today feel meaningful regardless of how much you get done? What's the one thing that, if accomplished, would make you feel aligned with your deeper purpose? What quality do you want to embody? What value do you want to honor? This is not about productivity hacks or time management techniques. This is about remembering who you are beneath all the roles you play. This is about creating a North Star that guides you when everything else is pulling you in 1,000 directions, demanding your attention, insisting on its urgency. I've seen people reclaim their entire lives through this single practice, because when you define your intention first, you create a filter for all the noise that comes afterward. When someone demands your time, you can ask yourself if it serves your intention. When you feel scattered and overwhelmed, you can return to your intention for clarity. When you're tempted to waste hours on meaningless activity that feels urgent but isn't important, your intention reminds you of what actually matters. This isn't selfish. This is essential. Because a person who knows their intention is infinitely more valuable to the world than a person who's just reacting to everyone else's urgency. A clear person can help others. A scattered person just spreads their confusion. A centered person can create real value. A reactive person just perpetuates chaos. The seventh habit is expressing gratitude before expecting anything. Gratitude is not a feeling you wait to experience when good things happen. It's a practice you choose to cultivate regardless of circumstances. And when you practice it first thing in the morning, before you've had a chance to focus on what's wrong, what's missing, or what you're worried about, you fundamentally shift your baseline emotional state. You train your brain to look for what's working instead of obsessing over what isn't. You remind yourself that even in struggle, even in uncertainty, even in difficulty, there is still something worth acknowledging, something worth honoring, something that deserves your attention and appreciation. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or denying real problems or adopting some toxic positivity that refuses to see difficulty. It means choosing to see the full picture instead of just the negative. It means recognizing that your attention is the most valuable resource you have, and where you direct it shapes your entire experience of reality. When you start your day by acknowledging 3 things you're grateful for, you're not being naive or delusional. You're being strategic. You're choosing to activate the neural pathways associated with abundance, connection, and possibility, instead of the pathways associated with scarcity, isolation, and fear. You're training your reticular activating system to notice the good alongside the bad, instead of filtering everything through threat and lack. I write 3 things every morning. Sometimes they're profound, sometimes they're simple. The specific content matters less than the consistent practice, because what I'm really doing is training my mind to look for the good, to notice the gifts that are always present if I'm willing to see them, to recognize that my life contains both struggle and beauty simultaneously. And when I enter the day from this mindset, everything changes. Problems become challenges instead of catastrophes. Setbacks become information instead of identity. Difficulty becomes temporary instead of permanent. People's flaws become human instead of unforgivable. My own mistakes become opportunities for growth instead of evidence of worthlessness. This is the power of gratitude, not to make problems disappear, but to ensure they don't distort your entire perception of reality. Not to eliminate difficulty, but to prevent difficulty from convincing you that nothing good exists. Now, here's what most people miss about habits, what they fundamentally misunderstand about how change actually works. They think habits are about discipline and willpower, about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do through sheer determination and gritted teeth. But that's not how lasting change works. That's not how sustainable transformation happens. Real habits become automatic because they make you feel better, because they connect you to a version of yourself you actually want to be, because they prove something to you that changes how you see yourself. These 7 habits aren't punishments. They're not obligations. They're gifts. They're ways of telling yourself, through action, that you matter, that your life deserves intentional creation instead of passive acceptance, that you're worth the effort it takes to begin each day with purpose instead of panic. When I look back at my life, at the decades I've spent observing human behavior and studying what separates fulfilled people from frustrated people, the periods of greatest clarity, productivity, and fulfillment all have one thing in common. They were periods when I protected my mornings, when I refused to let the world dictate how I started my day, when I chose discipline over comfort, intention over reaction, presence over distraction. And the periods of confusion, stagnation, and dissatisfaction were periods when I let my mornings become chaotic, when I woke up reactive, scattered, and already defeated. The correlation is undeniable and absolute. Your mornings create your life, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. The way you begin determines how you proceed. The habits you practice in the first hour shape everything that follows. I want you to understand something crucial. You don't need permission to change. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need to wait until you feel motivated or inspired or ready. You need to decide that the way you've been living isn't good enough anymore. You need to recognize that you have agency, that your choices matter, that 30 days of intentional mornings will create a completely different reality than 30 days of reactive mornings. This isn't theory, this isn't speculation. This is observable cause and effect that you can test and verify in your own life, and it's available to you right now, not someday, not when things get easier, but right now. The resistance you feel when you think about implementing these habits is not a sign that they're wrong for you. It's not evidence that you're not ready, or that this isn't the right time. It's a sign that they're threatening to the version of you that's comfortable with mediocrity. That resistance is your mind trying to protect the familiar, even when the familiar is making you miserable. It's your ego defending its territory, insisting that change is too hard, too uncomfortable, too uncertain. But you're stronger than your resistance. You're more capable than your excuses. And deep down, beneath all the fear and doubt and habitual thinking, you know this. You know that you've been settling. You know that your potential is buried under layers of reactivity and distraction. You know that something has to change, and that something is how you begin your day. 30 days. That's all I'm asking. 30 consecutive days of waking up without negotiation, beginning with silence, hydrating before stimulating, moving before momentum, consuming substance before information, defining intention before obligation, and expressing gratitude before expectation. 30 days of proving to yourself that you can be disciplined, intentional, and present. 30 days of building a new identity as someone who doesn't just react to life, but creates it. And if you do this, genuinely do this without excuses or exceptions or bargaining with yourself, you will not recognize the person you become. Not because you'll transform into someone different, but because you'll finally become who you've always been capable of being. You'll shed the layers of conditioning, reactivity, and self-abandonment that have been covering your true self. You'll remember who you are when you're not just responding to everyone else's demands. The world will resist your change. Other people's chaos will try to pull you back into old patterns because your growth makes them uncomfortable with their stagnation. Your own comfort-seeking mind will offer 1,000 reasons to quit, to make exceptions, to start again tomorrow. But every morning you'll have a choice. You can choose yourself, your growth, your potential, or you can choose comfort, familiarity, stagnation. And that choice, repeated every day for 30 days, will determine everything. Not just your mornings, not just your habits, your entire life, your sense of who you are, your belief in what you're capable of, your relationship with discipline, with self-respect, with possibility. I spent years watching people struggle, not because they lacked knowledge or resources, but because they lacked consistency in the fundamentals. They were looking for complex solutions to simple problems. They wanted advanced strategies before they'd mastered basic practices. They wanted transformation without discipline. They wanted results without process. And it doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way. Transformation comes from small, consistent, intentional actions repeated until they become your new normal. It comes from choosing to honor yourself even when no one is watching, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it would be easier to just stay the same. It comes from understanding that every choice is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. These 7 habits are not complicated, but they're also not easy. They require you to go against your conditioning, to resist cultural norms, to prioritize your inner world when everything around you is screaming for your external attention. They require you to value delayed gratification over immediate pleasure, long-term growth over short-term comfort, authentic living over performative existence. And that's hard. It's supposed to be hard. Because if it were easy, everyone would do it. And if everyone did it, you wouldn't be reading this right now looking for a way to break free from the masses, stuck in mediocrity, confusion, and quiet desperation. You're different. You know you're capable of more. You feel the pull toward a life that's more intentional, more meaningful, more yours. And that pull isn't delusional. It's not fantasy. It's accurate. You are capable of more. You just have to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start building it one morning at a time, one habit at a time, one choice at a time. The version of you that exists 30 days from now is being created by the decisions you make tomorrow morning. Not someday, not eventually tomorrow. And every morning after that for the next month, your life is not happening to you. It's being created by you through thousands of small choices that either honor your potential or betray it. And the most important of those choices happens in the first hour of your day, because that hour sets the tone, establishes the pattern, creates the momentum, and determines whether you're living with intention or just reacting to circumstance. You already know this. You've always known this. You've felt it every time you've woken up reactive and spent the whole day trying to catch up. You've felt it every time you've started with clarity and watched everything flow. You've just been avoiding the discomfort of actually doing something about it consistently. But here's what I've learned after decades of studying human behavior and transformation, after working with thousands of people, after experiencing my own journey from chaos to clarity. The discomfort of discipline is temporary and directional. It moves you towards something better. The discomfort of regret is permanent and circular. It keeps you trapped in the same patterns, wondering why nothing changes. Watching years slip by while you remain fundamentally the same person, having the same struggles. You get to choose which discomfort you want to live with. The discomfort of growth or the discomfort of stagnation. Both are uncomfortable, but only one leads somewhere worth going. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm sounds, remember this. You are not just waking up. You are choosing. You are declaring who you are and what your life means. You are either reinforcing the patterns that have kept you stuck or building new patterns that will set you free. There is no neutral. There is no autopilot that leads to excellence. There is only choice repeated consistently until it becomes character. And your character determines your destiny. This is not metaphorical wisdom. This is practical reality. I believe in your capacity to change, not because I know you personally, but because I know what human beings are capable of when they decide to honor themselves. I've seen it thousands of times. I've experienced it myself. The person who commits to these 7 habits for 30 days becomes unrecognizable, not because they've adopted some fake persona, but because they've removed all the layers of reactivity, distraction, and self-abandonment that were covering their true self. They don't become someone new. They become someone true, someone authentic, someone who finally matches on the outside what they've always known on the inside they could be. This is your invitation, not to perfection, not to some impossible standard that sets you up for failure, but to consistency, to self-respect, to the kind of life that's built intentionally rather than accepted passively. 30 days, 7 habits, one choice at a time. That's how you change everything. That's how you reclaim your mornings, your days, your life. That's how you stop being a passenger and become the driver. That's how you finally discover what you've always been capable of. The question isn't whether you can do this, you can. The question is whether you will. And that answer reveals everything about who you're choosing to be. Choose wisely. Choose yourself. Choose now.